All right, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Hermit card. And actually, before I get started, our cat, Kit Kat, was in here and she was doing really well. And then she started to get a little bit too energetic and I kept losing focus, so I couldn't record. I couldn't concentrate. And it was nice having her in here. I kind of liked having some company. I liked having her around, but I just kept having to stop and redo stuff. So maybe in the future she can sit beside me and do a video, because there was one point in time where she was really calm. And so we'll see. But that's kind of what the Hermit card is about. It's about focus. It's about being able to concentrate on something that's important. And so we're going to take a look at that today. And we'll look at a bunch of different decks. We'll look at the astrology. We'll look at the Kabbalistic tree of life and put these things together so that this can be a part of, whatever reading you came up with. You can have some sort of understanding of what that means for you. And of course, you may not resonate with everything that I say here, and that's fine. We all can find different meanings in the cards, but let's go ahead and get started. So the word Hermit comes from the Greek word eremos, which means of the desert or from the desert. And that makes sense because when you look at the card, you do see kind of a barren landscape there. There are some mountains in the background, but for the most part, it's just a hermit there with a lantern and not much else. It's deserted. And I think that isolation is important at times. I know that we can't all do that. We don't all have the opportunity to be alone, to be away. We may have little children running around, or maybe some other really serious responsibility that's taking up our time. And I understand that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be done outside of the chaos of life or the hectic nature of your life. It can be done within that as well. So you're not limited when it comes to really finding that time in that place. And I think that there's a balance that comes with it. This card from the Omega Land Tarot kind of reminds me of the reversal of the Hermit, which is maybe too much time detached, spending too much time alone or with boundaries, and not really connecting socially or interacting in the physical world. And I think that can be detrimental as well, because it's sort of lacking the things that nourish us, sort of lacking the things that are a part of this experience, because we live in the physical world and we are trying to be a part of this world as well. So let's move on here. Let's talk about some other things. There is a lot of wisdom associated with the Hermit card. It's usually a person that's older on the card. And the reason for that is because it's, I think, connecting it to life experience and really trying to help us understand that the things that we go through in life can teach us and to help us become better people. My thoughts on that have changed over the years, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But for the most part, you may also see owls. So on the Nameless One Tarot, we have an owl. And on the Hush Tarot, we also have an owl. And of course, we all can get that symbol. We know that symbol is associated with wisdom. It's associated with experience. And I think that, that's good for the character. It's good for the role we play in the physical world, but it's not necessarily for our divine spark. So our divine spark is perfect. It does not need life lessons. And there's we have to distinguish that. And I think that if we look at this card right here from Tarot of the Abyss, this is more in line with learning from life lessons. So this person is going on a journey. They're going up this mountain, and there can be difficult things in life that we learn from. And some of those things do point us to our divine spark, because we go inward as we encounter certain things in life. And I'm not saying those things are not valuable. They are. And they can lead us to somewhere that really does connect us to what and who we truly are. But if we look at the person at the top of the mountain, they're looking into the lantern. And so they're looking at and reflecting on their experiences in life, their journey in life. And at least to me, that's what this card's telling me. And I think that that's important, but like I said, it's important for the character and for the role, and not for what and who you truly are. That part of you is perfect. And like I said, It does not need life lessons. It doesn't need anything. Every man and every woman is a star, and that star is a part of something that was perfect from the very beginning. So keep that in mind as we continue to talk about this card, because I'm going to elaborate on that. And shifting that focus back and forth is remembering to connect to that divine spark. And I like that they have a Yeti on the Myths and Legends Tarot, because the Yeti is something that can go back and forth and shift its focus between dimensions. And so it can manifest in this world or in its own dimension. And that's kind of the theory anyway behind what the Yeti is doing. And so that's why Yeti is such a mysterious figure and very hard to, I guess, capture or, keep contained, because it shifts realities. And I think that when we shift our focus, that's something that is necessary, because if we look at the Chariot card and we look at the Strength card, the Hermit card connects to those two. So if you haven't watched my videos on those two cards, check those out, because I think that they do set up that whole scenario and that whole picture of what this card means. So let's talk briefly about them. The Chariot card was about really understanding what it takes to activate the divine spark and to activate the Kundalini energy to connect to the divine spark and figure out who you are. And it's connected to that light body and the ability to have power in this physical world, which leads us to the Strength card. The Strength card is about using that power in the physical world and what that looks like. Being able to really apply what we've learned in the Chariot card in reality, in the world. And in the Thoth system, that card is called Lust. And it's called Lust because I think there is this attachment that we can have to the physical world, especially when we are able to manifest in it how we want to, when we're able to make it the ideal place. And the more you're connected to your divine spark, the more power you have to do that. But it comes at a price, and with power comes responsibility. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true, because there is this responsibility to avoid that lustful nature of the attachment to the physical world, because that is ultimately the attachment to the character and to the role. So we have to remember that. And I love on the Poetic Tarot how it has an image very similar to the Chariot card on the Hermit. So it kind of brings it full circle, right? It goes from the Chariot to the Strength and then back to the Hermit card, because it's about shifting that focus, okay? And on the Tabula Mundi, we also have something similar, because the person's taking the Kundalini snake down into the abyss. They've already figured out how to do that from the Chariot card, and they're returning from the physical world back into the inner world, the underworld, to the abyss with that knowledge. Same thing on the Tarot of the Abyss. The person has a snake here. They already have the lessons of the Chariot. Same thing on the Tarot of the New Vision. The snake is behind them, going with them on the journey now. I think that, yeah, we can learn things in the physical world, but they're not our foundation. All of those things in the physical must be taken to our essence, our internal spark, in order to really understand them. So for example, on the Mars Power Tarot, we have all of these books, and the person's buried inside of these books. And I get that. I love to read. I love to gain knowledge from other people and try to understand what they're talking about. And sometimes that does point me in a direction that connects me further to my divine spark. There's nothing wrong with that. But it can become contradicting. It can become confusing if you don't have that connection. So many people will come to truth in different ways. My truth isn't necessarily going to be the same as your truth or your divine spark or your divine will. Ultimately, it's the same thing, but we can get there in very different ways and with very different truths. So what I mean by that is that just can't be your foundation. So if we look at the Mio Eames Tarot, the person's standing on all of these books and they're trying to get to something out of reach here. We can't see what it is. They have all these scars on their legs. So they have their experiences coming from the ruins, and then they have their foundation. So the reason why I mentioned coming from the ruins is because the Sanskrit for the hermit is arma, which means coming from the ruins. And so that's coming from our experiences, what I've been talking about as well. But again, it's not our foundation. So it's hard for me to communicate this because my truth is going to be somewhat muted in a way because I can't express it all. There are certain things that are just not able to really be transferred from one person to another. Okay, so I had to mention that. So I want to show you something. I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'm just going to show you, and then you can come to your own decision. So if we look at these three cards, the first card is from the Blue Apple Tarot, and the Hermit's holding a blue apple. A blue apple is a key. It is a key that unlocks human beings. It liberates human beings. It removes us or detaches us from some sort of system, okay? And the Hermit in this case is walking away from a tunnel of light. So my question, and the thing that I want you to ponder, is why is he moving away from the light? Why is he going into the darkness? Same thing with the Tabula Mundi, right? He's going down into the abyss. Why is that the case? Why is he turned away from that tunnel of light? What do you think? Also, on the Fountain Tarot, same thing. On the Fountain Tarot, there's a portal of light in the middle, but he's shining his lantern into the darkness around it. Why? Same thing with the Holy Spectrum, Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. This time there's the moon. Now, I don't know whether he's going towards the moon or not, but he is in a desert, and there's something interesting about the moon being in this card. What is the moon symbolic of to you? Would you turn towards it or away from it? These are the questions. And I won't tell you my answer just because that's not my place. But I wanted to share those cards with you. But I want to talk to you now about the number 9. So this card is associated with the number 9. And that's about beginnings and ends. It's about planting seeds and harvest. So you have the number 9, which is the last of the single digits, okay? And then after that, you have an abundance or a sea of other numbers. So it's an end of the single digits, but a beginning of a lot of other numbers, infinite amount of numbers. And if we look at these two cards, one from the Mystic Eye Tarot, or the Mind's Eye Tarot, and another from the John Bauer Tarot, we kind of get that. So it's that seed, right? The thought, or the understanding, the question of who am I? What am I? When you start asking that, that's the gestation period of the seed. And then you are at a level where you're bound to be at this exalted period. Not exalted as better than everyone else or special, but just at a different journey or on a different pathway than what you were on. You're no longer on the pathway of the character. I'll put it this way, you're not identifying with the character that you once thought you were. You know who you are and what you are because you question it. So look at this card from Tarot Oscuro. The person's wearing a mask. Inside of them is something else. The mask is needed to mimic the character that this person once thought they were in order to still be in the physical world. Okay? So think about that. Are you mindlessly playing the role of the character? Or do you know you're not the character and you're mimicking and putting on the mask to be a part of this world? There's a big difference. Not a lot of people know that. But if you're questioning that, and if you've asked yourself those questions from the Chariot card into the Strength card and now, that's the number 9 the end and the beginning. Okay? And a lot of people might look at this and think, oh, well, this looks bad. And people might look at you and think, okay, that's weird, but there's a beauty to it. And don't forget that, and you'll see that as long as you keep going. Just like on the Nicoletta Choccoli tarot, this person, the smaller person down here, sees the beauty in what they truly are, the bigger part of them, okay? And there's a boundary there because we have to shift focus and keep going back and forth to that. Hopefully this makes sense. But let's keep going here. Let's look at the astrology of this card. The astrology of this card connects it to Virgo. And on the Celestial Tarot, you see it says Virgo here at the top. And Virgo really is about focus. It is also about being analytical and understanding, and there's a lot of wisdom involved there. And it's also, at the same time, though, about abundance. So it's about focusing at a point, and also about abundance. So it's also connected to the number 9. But it's about planting that seed and that harvest. So you have Ceres here, which was a goddess of wheat, and she's planting seeds. And so there's this beginning, and then there will be a harvest, an end. So I love this card for that, how it kind of shows that fertile side of Virgo, but also on the side of more of the analytical side, Virgo is connected to Mercury. Mercury is about wisdom, knowledge, and it's connected to Hermes, which is ultimately the Hermit. Hermes was a scribe, and so if we look at the Thoth deck, Thoth is also related to Hermes. Thoth is Hermes, in a sense. So if we look right here at the head of the Hermit, it looks like an ibis. So an ibis is a symbol for, if you look for Hermes in ancient, hieroglyphics, you'll see an ibis. And an ibis is a symbol for the scribe of the gods, which is Hermes, imparting knowledge or wisdom. And so that's why there is that connection. The Thoth card has so much astrology and connection to so many different things that I've mentioned here. So one, you have wheat all over it, which is a sign of Virgo, a sign of abundance. You also have the 3-headed dog here. I think it's Cherubus, I think that's the name of it. And that 3-headed dog has been tamed. And that's about taming the lust of the Strength card. And then you have also the Sun. The Sun connects this card to what you truly are, a divine spark. And it connects it to that because on the Tree of Life, this card goes from chest, it's the pathway from chest, to Tippereth, which is the sun. So it's understanding that, and you can understand that through spending time going back with the Hermit and connecting those two things. The world of chest is the world of Jupiter, which is about expansion. And that expansion is the expansion of wisdom, it's expansion of your consciousness in order to really fit that bigger part of what you really are into your essence, right? And to have that be separate from the role that you play and be a bigger part of your life. And then we have the Tarot of Physics. The Tarot of Physics has a recorder on it. A recorder is perfect, right? Hermes was, or Thoth was a scribe of the gods. Recording information is important, but that information should be pointing you to who you are. And if you read the Emerald Tablets, it always points you to the fact that you are star bound by a mountain. And you have mountains in the background of the RWS card. And I want to read something to you here from the Navigator's Tarot of the Mystic Sea. So I didn't always have this book, but I'm glad that I got it. It's by Julia A. Turk. It's amazing. I think that it connects so many different things. And there is this sort of poem that she writes at the beginning of talking about each card. I'm going to read that to you. I'm going to show this card as I read it. And you'll hear a lot of things that I talked about as I read this. So just kind of like let the words sink in, reflect on it. And I think it will work on the subconscious. So it says, surrounded by the diamond and the pearl, twixt snake and lion, rapturous Virgo flounces towards the coma of the fool, her fondness thus infrequently on show. Within her body closely lies a harvest of pure grain, which finely ground becomes the bread that is the staff of life, the focus of a soul detached, unbound. Remove your veil and unmask consciousness. Become potential of deep nourishment. The door that locked The door that's locked awaits the opening key. Seek now to find the hidden instrument. Judge, never criticize the world around. Reveal your buried sensitivity. Open your eyes to vision's awesome rule by grasping threads of detailed imagery. The hermit stands alone unto himself. The worlds around him float at measured pace. To bridge the gap, it takes a special sense. The eagle, landing, will provide that grace. Worship the sacrifice fire and gently float beyond spent passions, measureless pursue. Holding your light above, peruse the stage, your finger to your lips, and breathless mute. So I think that says basically everything that I've been saying. So if you read that and really ponder that, I think it can lead to some really cool truths that point you to your inner world. And so at this point in the video, I want to do what I usually do, which is talk about an element from the periodic table and associate it with the card that I'm talking about. And it's just a way to perform a certain type of alchemy that I like to do. And I just find it fun. So you can join me for this part of it. I think that there usually are some pretty interesting connections. And the element that we're going to be talking about is element number 9, which is fluorine. And I think that this is a perfect element to kind of connect to the Hermit card because there are a lot of similarities there. And the first thing is that fluorine is one of those elements that's not found by itself in nature. It needs to be extracted, just like our divine spark is not just going to naturally, in most cases, just appear in nature. It's something that we have to go inward to extract and then bring out into the physical world. And it kind of takes the characteristics that are embedded in the Hermit card in order to understand how to do that. So the Chariot, the Strength card, and the Hermit card all working in unison in order to bring that out. And so fluorine is also known as fluorospar when it's connected to some of these other elements, and particularly calcium, so calcium fluoride. That is something you might be familiar with. It's called fluorospar, but it's also known as fluorite. And fluorite is something that's used to purify other metals. And that brings me to the number 9, because the number 9 is also a number about really being service to others as well. So that's one thing. I also want to mention that fluorine is one of those elements that when connected to some other elements like hydrogen, it's known as hydrofluoric acid, it can damage the skin. It can also be fatal to a person if they're exposed to too much hydrofluoric acid. And so same thing with the Hermit in a way. I think that with the Hermit card, I think if we go back to the Chariot, we know that no one can look at the charioteer and live. And so what I mean by that is on a Thoth system, he's wearing all of this armor. And I talked about it when I talked about the Chariot card, but he's wearing all this armor and you can't see who that person is. It's because when you see him, you'll see what and who you truly are, and you realize that you're not the character or the role that you're playing. And so therefore you can't look at the charioteer and live. Same thing with hydrofluoric acid. You can't be in its presence and not be affected in a way that seriously transforms your physical. And once you understand that, and once you're on the journey that is separate, the pathway that's different, and you're no longer just mindlessly playing the role, there's a certain level of protection that comes from that, as long as you remember to shift your focus back and forth. There's a level of protection, and there's also this element of protection that's associated with fluorine. So fluorine is used in making Teflon. Teflon is a type of material that's resistant to chemical attack. So anything that tries to degrade it or break it down, it's very resistant to that. That's because it forms very stable bonds. And there's a very stable bond that can be formed between the role that you're playing and your true self when you understand that. It's a very stable situation. It's not the instability of like what we talked about from learning from books or getting external knowledge. And so I think that level of protection, you'll recognize that once you get to this point in your life. The other thing is it's used in Gore-Tex, which is something that is weather resistant. And so when things happen in life, when you have to weather the storms of life, there's also a certain level of protection there as well. and you realize that there are certain things that just won't have an effect on you. That releases you from a lot of the fears that power this system. And so that gives you a lot of power as well. The challenge or the role that your divine spark must be a part of is not allowing your character or role to take over in the abundance of being able to transform and manifest in the physical world. And so there's a lot of responsibility there. So that's what I wanted to mention. Those are the things I wanted to talk about with fluorine, with the Hermit card, and just looking at all of these different aspects to it. And I look forward to talking about the Wheel of Fortune, which is a very important card that I think will be something that a lot of people will have to really ponder in the future. So look forward to that card coming soon. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.